Hi everyone and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, or welcome if you're new to my channel. Either way, make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Would help me out, will help you out. So with that being said, today we're going to take a look at a werewolf, non-werewolf kind of movie, depending on how you feel about it. And I'll get more into that later. But the movie we're going to take a look at I have for my standard DVD collection. And that movie is Wolfen from 1981, which I have on one of these lovely snapper cases. I'm being sarcastic. I fucking hate snapper cases. But sometimes that's what we got. That's what we got. So anyway, Wolfen from 1981. Let's go ahead and get into it. So Wolfen is a 1981 American crime horror film directed by Michael Wadley in his only directorial feature film, based on Whitley Strieber's 1978 novel The Wolfen. The film follows a city cop who has been assigned to uncover what is behind a series of vicious murders. Originally, it is believed that the murders are animal attacks until the cop discovers an indigenous legend about wolf spirits. So basically, the movie opens with former New York police detective Captain Dewey Wilson, who is brought back to the force and assigned to solve a bizarre string of violent murders after high-profile magnate Christopher Vanderveer, his wife, and his bodyguard are slain in Battery Park. Executive Security, the private firm employed by Vanderveer, blames the murders on a group of left-wing activists, or anarchists. But knowing that the victim's bodyguard was a 300-pound Haitian with voodoo ties leads Wilson to doubt this theory because the bodyguard was torn apart with ruthless efficiency. With pressure to solve the case coming from both the police commissioner and the mayor, Wilson is partnered with criminal psychologist Rebecca Neff. Elsewhere, in the South Bronx, a homeless man explores an abandoned church that is scheduled to be demolished by Vanderveer's development company. He is killed by an unseen monstrous being. Wilson and Neff investigate his murder. At the church, the apparent sound of a baby crying lures Neff up to the bell tower. Wilson follows her but does not hear the crying. Once Neff is separated from him, he hears a wolf howl. He goes up after Neff and drags her to safety. So yeah, that's to set up the premise, the beginning of Wolfen from 1981. As far as the cast goes, we have Albert Finney as Dewey Wilson, Diane Venora as Rebecca Neff, Edward James Olmos as Eddie Holt, Gregory Hines as Connor Winnington, Tom Noonan as Ferguson, and Dick O'Neill as Captain Warren. So that's to set up the premise and the cast for the 1981 werewolf slash non-werewolf movie Wolfen. I choose to look at it as a non-werewolf movie. I'm just going to throw that out there right away. This movie's kind of a mixed bag for me, if I'm being honest with you. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here, especially from a technical standpoint. But unfortunately, the story just doesn't quite come across on screen, I think, the way that the director intended. Or I think that the way the book does from everybody that I've heard that's read it. I think the movie's a bit of a hit, a swing and a miss in that regard. But let's go ahead and get into it, starting with the things that I liked about Wolfen. It's a very well shot movie. There's no denying that. It has great cinematography, some really great views of New York City's landscape and skyline from that time. Especially some of our characters are up high on the bridge. It really gives you a nice skyline of New York City. Some very nice views and visuals. So that's the first thing that really stands out about this movie, how well shot it is. It also sort of has that thermal vision, predator vision we get, and POV shots from the creature's point of view when they're moving around and stalking people. I think that's really well done, and I think it adds a sort of unique look and feel to the movie that would be lacking otherwise. So that's another aspect of how it's shot well that I really enjoyed in the movie. I think the performances are good here, led by Albert Finney and Diana Venora, Gregory Hines as well. It was also kind of fun to see some other recognizable cameos in the movie from the guy that plays Strickland in the Back to the Future movies. I know his last name is Tolkien, but I forget what his first name is. And also Carl Winslow from Family Matters, or Reginald Val Johnson from the Die Hard movies and Family Matters. They both make short little cameos here, but it's kind of fun. It adds a little something to the movie. I will say it's a very unique and interesting premise or idea that the movie attempts to put on screen here. Obviously, coming from the book, um, it just really sets it apart from other horror movies during this time. Not just the other werewolf movies, but other horror movies in general, because it's very different. It has a sort of a very different premise than just like a standard, a standard sort of horror movie that we're used to during this time. It's more of an animal spirit kind of movie with some Native American ties, with some things to say about the human race and society, as opposed to being a straight up werewolf movie where if you're bitten by a werewolf, you become a werewolf yourself, and having sort of a werewolf transformation scene like the other two well known movies did from 1981, of course, The Howling and An American Werewolf in London. This is different. And that's why I don't think it is a full blown werewolf movie. I understand that it has wolves in the movie, but again, they're not werewolves. They're more or less animal spirits that are created through the Native Americans. And I do kind of like that part of it because, as it's explained in the movie, like wolves and Native Americans at the time when it was their land, they had a connection. They were together, and so once they were wiped out, it kind of made sense for them to share that spirit, that animal spirit connection, where they basically, Native Americans could become shapeshifters. I thought that was very interesting, very clever, and good storytelling there. Like I said, unfortunately, I'll get more into this with my cons, but it just doesn't come across on screen as well as I think it could have, for a variety of reasons. And then my final pros is I think the movie does have good atmosphere, that good late 70s, early 80s New York City atmosphere that's created here. And I also think the score is very effective, giving us some pretty intense score moments in certain scenes in this movie. So that worked for me. So, yeah, those are my pros for Wolfen from 1981. As far as cons go, so the movie's long. It's just under 2 hours. I think it's like 114 minutes or something. And to be honest with you, I was kind of bored at parts, at times in this movie. It was a bit of a slog to get through, if I'm being honest with you. I just wasn't engaged enough in the story or how it was presented on screen, or the characters, honestly, to be fully invested in what was going on. I would say it was more the investigative side of it, the police procedural side, that I was finding to be a bit boring. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought there was some stuff they could have cut out of there. They could have tightened it up a little. They could have made this like an hour 40-minute movie instead of an hour 55-minute movie. That's just how I felt. I just didn't feel like everything came across the screen as connective and as entertaining as it could have. And so I was kind of bored. I think one of the biggest problems this movie has is that it's clearly overshadowed by the other two movies that people wrongly, in my opinion, lump it in with. And that's The Howling and An American Werewolf in London. I don't think this movie's not like those two movies. Those are full-blown werewolf movies. This is not a full-blown werewolf movie. It's a movie, as I said, that sort of uses an animal spirit premise, and really uses regular wolves. They're not even werewolves, so I'm not sure why it got lumped in. But that didn't do it any favors when it came out, for sure, as it did not do well at the box office. The critics liked it, it seemed like. I mean, it had pretty good reviews, but the audiences didn't. They either didn't see it because it didn't play at enough theaters, or it just didn't hold up to those other two movies I mentioned. And I don't really think it should hold up to those other two movies, because this is a completely different premise. So I'm going to say this is not a werewolf movie. In fact, I have a bit of a hard time. It's even a full-blown horror movie. I guess you could say that it is. It does have some kills on screen, some gore, some blood. Even though that's not really the point of the movie. It's more of I would say it's more of a crime thriller, police procedural kind of movie that happens to have animal attacks or animal spirit attacks, if you will. That's maybe the horror aspect of it. Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't. It doesn't strike me as an engaging horror movie, an entertaining horror movie. But like I said, more of a crime thriller. And I just think, as interesting as the story and the premise is from the book, I don't think the director, from that standpoint, the director does very well with the shooting of the movie, the cinematography, and a lot of other aspects. But I don't think he does as well with bringing this material onto the screen and making it as good as it could have been, as engaging and connective to the viewer as it could have been. And I also think that, I think Albert Finney's a good actor. I'm not sure he was the right actor to be cast in this role here, in my opinion, because you don't really get. I just wasn't that connected to his character. You kind of need a strong leading character, a strong leading performer to really bring you in and care about what's happening here more than I did. I read before going into this movie that Dustin Hoffman wanted the role that Albert Finney got, and the director wanted Albert Finney. So I mean, it is what it is. But I think that, in my opinion, it's just my opinion, as everything always is on my channel. I think Dustin Hoffman would have brought a little bit more to it. I think the viewer, like myself, would have been a bit more connected to it. It's just my feeling. It's not to rip Albert Finney or anything like that. But with all that being said, guys, this is a competently made movie with good performances, great visuals, very well shot, and it does have a very interesting premise from the book from 1978. It just doesn't. That premise and that story just doesn't come across as well in a film or as a script. What am I trying to say here? A screenplay. That's the word I was searching for. Maybe in the hands of a more experienced director, they might have been able to make that screenplay work, the adaptation from the book, and really brought it to. It just doesn't pop on the screen, if that makes sense. That's kind of how I feel about it. Not to say that it's terrible. There are good things about it, as I've mentioned, but the movie just doesn't pop for me. So I'm going to give this movie a 7 out of 10. Like I said, I think it's a mixed bag. I am interested to watch it again, which I certainly will. 7 out of 10 for Wolfen from 1981. Go ahead and comment down below what you guys think of Wolfen. From other reviews I've seen, it works well for some people, not as well as for others, like myself, I would say. But I don't hate the movie. It's not awful or anything like that. So 7 out of 10. But comment down below your thoughts about it. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel, as I mentioned earlier, so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews for this overall 1980s horror movie series, and specifically 1981 for the next month or so, in the middle of May. With that being said, I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're enjoying this review series. And as always, stay scared. Bye.